And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports. As you can see, the good news is the main man is back. Apologies for having to deal with Visa and the rest of them for the last couple of weeks. But the good news is Steve is back, and we're back for the foreseeable future. So, I'm gonna say this is the A team because nobody else is here to dispute it. So myself and Chris will be keeping you guys company for the next sort of 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how much we kind of get distracted with regards to all the matches and stuff that's happening this weekend. Very exciting weekend of rugby. And first of all, Chris, how are you?
Yeah, good, Steve. Good to see you. I think this is our first camera share since I've joined the team, joined the party. So good to see you after our technical gremlins a few weeks ago. But yeah, good to see you. Good to be back, and glad that I can hold up the fort. So I don't know what the other guys are up to. I hope they're having fun, but we'll do it. We'll
I think Rion's got some weird excuse, like he's sick. I think Reese's playing cricket. You know, all just poor excuses, if you ask me. But we'll allow it. We'll allow it. I'm sure we'll see them back next week.
Of course. Balance is key, right? Balance.
Exactly. I suppose you can't always just come in here and chat some bad shit about the rugby and stuff. But so over the next 45 minutes, we've got a lot to talk about. We had a weekend of URC as the URC sort of returned last week. Some very interesting results. My boys Alliance clutching up for the South African contingent, and a couple of interesting Currie Cup results as well. And then this coming weekend, we've got a pretty historical weekend, I suppose, in terms of playoff games for South African teams for the first time ever. And very interesting to sort of see how they fare. A couple of teams are home, a couple of teams are away. It's interesting to see which teams are being back to get the victories, which teams are not being backed at all to get the and obviously this is a round of 16. So for football fans who are now sort of looking at coming across, there's no sort of two legs or anything like that. It is a one leg match. The quarterfinals I think are in fact next weekend. I think it's back to back, isn't it? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's right.
So there's not even a break or anything like that. So it goes round of 16, quarterfinals and semi-finals at the end of April. The grand final is on the 20th of May. So really sort of ramping up from the European perspective. But we'll get to that. But Chris, let's start with some URC because it was an interesting weekend last weekend, and I think a couple of teams.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think if you look at especially the South African perspective, some very disappointing performances and some results. And for me, a lot of red flags almost popping up with a couple of South African teams. So let's look at it. Let's start with where were we last weekend, which is the first. Leinster Stormers, Friday night, late night. Leinster Academy side, U side, C side, under 9 side. You can use all the different terms. It wasn't the strongest Leinster side. A couple of good players in there. And it was a pretty full-strength Stormers side who looked like they had things under control and then all kind of capitulated a little bit. What do we put this loss down to? Do we just talk about Springbok coming back and starting to just gel again, getting back to grips? Do we talk about the conditions, for example, not adapting fast enough? And how worried should the Stormers be about this result, or is this one of those things where you kind of put it down for a bit of experience and we kind of move on?
Sure, lots to unpack here in this one, isn't there? In terms of the betting and the beginning of the week last week, Leinster were a 10-point favourite, but of course that was before what we knew the teams were going to be like, because we were obviously anticipating that. Well, we probably should have known that the Irish contingents will be given the week off to nurse or carry on part in. I don't know if they're still going.
Yeah, probably.
But when that news came, the line dropped quite dramatically down to 5 3 points favourites to Leinster. Because obviously that was the back of the full-strength Stormers team news. What do we put it down to? I mean, Stormers came out firing, which was great. Conditions played a part. They had the wind in their back in the second half. Initially, in the first 20 minutes, it looked like Stormers weren't going to get enough. And no matter what team you're going to put out, you're going to have to say it's a game of two halves. Leinster were always going to get opportunities in the second half because they're going to have that big wind at their back. It was about how far ahead Stormers can go and how well can they manage the second half. And what happened was they're probably a try or two short in the first half, and they totally stuffed up the second half tactics. And that was disappointing because I don't know who was given the instructions to do that or who didn't read that, because that was just brain dead, and that worries me. When if we Stormers do progress and start playing the bigger boys and full strength Leinsters and Toulouse will be punished heavily. So Stormers, it's a disappointing result. Like I just said, a loss. It was a draw, but it felt like a loss because Stormers really should have controlled the game, even in those conditions. They're playing well enough to do it. So I put it down. South African team, I think South African teams don't travel well, so I'm always nervous. I mean, we'll get the shot.
One South African team's traveled pretty well this season when it comes to my boys as well. But yes, in general, they haven't traveled well. Yeah.
Okay. We won't talk about the opponents, but yes, one team did travel very well. But so that's one thing. And Leinster is at home. You're gonna back them. They're gonna come out firing. They were gonna play the game like they did. I just don't. This EuroC is a very home team-based tournament, isn't it? Home teams are favourite most of the time, are winning. When they come into us, we put in it past them. We're not putting our full strength teams. I just don't know what it is with South African teams. And the conditions, because I don't want to blame conditions, but we don't play in those conditions. We don't practice in it. Some guys probably like, oh, they're not comfortable. It's not an excuse. They should be good enough. That was just a disappointing result, but not the end of the world because I don't think it's going to actually ultimately affect the log positions, to be fair. So they might have to go back to Leinster and see the good old Irish mafia in front of them, and then there's a whole different story. So hard to actually taking them from that game because Stormers should be disappointed, but they're still in it. They're still a good side. They're still capable of beating that Leinster side on their day if it's full strength versus full strength.
Yeah, and for me, I was interested to see the fact that they did send over a full strength side. Given the fact that they've got this big Heineken Cup clash coming up this weekend, we all know that one of the biggest challenges for this exercise has been the traveling. The fact that they're traveling in economy, they're taking 2-3 days to get there, 2-3 days to get back. It's like you're kind of losing 2 to 3 days of training every week if you are traveling. So considering that they were playing at home, it was interesting that they still then sent a full strength side. Where, as you said, result wise, they probably didn't even need the win. They didn't even need a result there. So do you think it was just a case of we know that if we want to win this trophy again, we're probably going to have to come play over an iron against Leinster.
Yeah, I think that.
Therefore, we need to expose the players who are going to play in that final to what they're going to do.
I think that was exactly the right call. That's what you wanted to do. Take your best team there, get them acclimatized, get them into conditions. They'll come. Look at Bulls last year. They went to Leinster, got smashed. I don't think it was a full strength side. They went back there in the semis, and look what happened. Yeah. So. Used to say it doesn't happen again, but Leinster, I'm sure Leinster got to be in their bonnet this season. They've let go a few finals recently. I think they battled to see anyone getting past them this season, to be honest.
No, I think especially if you look at how well Ireland are playing, which basically is Leinster. And I think it's just
they're going to feed. That culture is going to feed into that Leinster side. And you saw Sexton. I don't know if he's gutted because. He was leaving the field. He didn't take his applause on his final Six Nation games because he said, "Oh crap, I'm injured and might not play for Leinster for the rest of it." That's why he wasn't. That's why he wasn't even. He was like, "I don't want to be injured. I want to go back to Leinster and get the double." So you see what it means to these guys, So.
Well, I think James Ryan today was saying that he said that the Grand Slam, he said they've forgotten about it. They said they've moved past it. They actually don't care about it anymore. He said he's fully focused.
Well, they don't remember it now.
True, yeah. But I think he said he said my focus now is on ruining Ulster's European dreams, and which was quite
funny. They will do that.
Yeah,
they will do that. No worries.
But other results then on Saturday, we saw the Lions beating Benetton. They almost did well to throw it away, but. It's weird how the Lions actually have travelled relatively well this season. They had a nice start to the season, and ironically, for a team that used to have Fortress Ellis, they beat Bulls away as well at Loftus. It seems to be that for some reason they seem to be playing better away from home. Maybe they just like playing in front of fans. They don't like the ghost town that is Ellis Park. But I think for me, especially as a Lions fan, the top 8 is gone for the Lions. It's mathematically still possible. It would need a hell of an effort and a couple of other results to go far. But in a union in such turmoil, do you think this is also now a case of players, for example, when things are going badly, there's so many things you can blame. You can blame the administration, you can blame the coach, you can blame the players. And now it's almost a case of well, we know it's a bit of a shit show. You've now almost got to go out and prove and say, well, there's lots of things wrong with the unions, but I'm not one of them. You can go and fire shots, but as a player, as a team, we can still compete. The issues are somewhere else. And how much do you think that some of these players actually have to prove going out there and showing that, and even, it guts me to say this, putting yourself in the shopping window and saying, I'm unhappy here. If I want to move and make a move and move somewhere else, I've got to start stringing together performances. We saw some very impressive individual performances for that Lions.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. I mean, they got some really good players. They do have good players. Okay, not many Springboks, if you want to say it, but but you remember in the beginning of the season, they also went and traveled well. They were the best early travelers, and so when they came back to South Africa and started putting these weird and different performances, it was bizarre. But then obviously we started to hear the noises from the camp. Which would make sense. And maybe there's a reason for it at home. Like it's close, it's every day, there's family, there's friends, it's in their face. But when they go away, they're just unhinged. They could just go and relax and play rugby and try not think about all that stuff. And it looks like they play with far more freedom when they're overseas. And look, that's Benetton, they had some players back, not all of them, not full strength, but they put the Lions away well and truly in the first half. But it's again Italian mentality. They're not a winner's mentality where it's weird how I don't know what goes on in their minds when they have when they really have an opportunity to put someone away. They didn't do it.
I think they just panic.
But I think
they're so used to not ever being in that position that they get there like shit. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do now? What do we do now?
Exactly. But it was a great result for the Lions anyway. It was great to see them come back. I watched the game. I enjoyed it, actually. I enjoy watching Benetton games because they go for it. They're like, for me, they're like the poor man's Crusaders trying to play Crusaders rugby, but they don't execute it. They pull it off. They 2 or 3 times they'll pull it off, but the rest of the game, they shoot to themselves in the foot like zebra. So look, maybe they persevere. They'll get better incrementally. Like I said, I'm waiting for 2030. That's my last year. I'm going to give these guys a chance. So hopefully it gets there. But well done to the Lions. Yeah, good win.
And then there's 2 elephants in the room. One's actually a bull, the other one's a shark. Because Scarlet Sharks. I mean, you sit there and I flicked over it, and I think I was watching the cricket at the time because it was early on. I flicked across to see what was happening, and I just couldn't believe when as I said, you look at the names on that Sharks team sheet. It's a Scarlet side which have not played well this season. They've been incredibly inconsistent. It's not a particularly good side. And once again, this and there's so many and pundits, everybody's just at a loss. Nobody can pinpoint why it's not working. But it's not.
Yeah, so we'll go take a betting angle as well. So as a punter, I had Sharks to win outright the game, but I also had something in me going, oh, these bloody Sharks. And I took a +4 handicap to think, okay, fine, if they screw it up and lose by 2 or the penalty at the end, my bets are going to land. But of course, the bet was never in after 15 minutes. Scarlets went ahead, and you could just see pure helter-skelter rugby from Sharks. You know what? For what I read, I think I put it in the group chat. What I read in that game, I saw a team that just haven't played together. I saw a team that half of them are Springboks, World Cup winning Springboks, and the other are battling to find their feet in rugby. And you had this complete mismatch of quality and looked like the Boks were trying to take control, but it was just helter-skelter, and it just never gelled. It just never came together. So I'm not going to say that that's how Sharks are. They've put in some superb performances as well. It's just so unreal that they can go. That should never lose that game. I mean, that's the reality. I've got them to certainly bounce back this weekend, but it's so frustrating. It's weird. It's very strange. I think it is. I just think it's just like with the Bulls, similar to the Bulls. You've got Lions who are close-knit, and the Stormers are certainly kind of close-knit, but got a good culture. I think the Bulls and Sharks have disconnects across their squads, and not good leadership. And they just, you can see they look a little headless chickens sometimes on the rugby field.
Well, let's talk about the Bulls, because I think a lot of people, and we're now at that weird sort of Jake White stage that he often seems to get through when he gets to teams, where he comes in. To his credit, he often does turn things around relatively quickly, and he did. I mean, the Bulls at one stage, no team could touch them. Post-COVID, I think they won 2 Currie Cups in the balance. They had won Super Rugby Unlocked. They then won the whatever the Rainbow Cup South Africa tournament. Then they lost to Benetton in the final there. But they were the South African side that everybody wants to be. And in the space of 18 months, they've gone from that to being a side where it doesn't matter if it's the Currie Cup side, the URC side, it could be the Lions side. There's just something rotten in that union which seems to be impeding every single performance. And people are now sort of, once again, the first thing, and they're turning and saying, we've seen this before with Jake White, where things go bad and he's not someone who, well, people are saying that he's not someone that's willing to put his hand up and say, I'm getting things wrong, I need to change things. And he can sometimes be the issue. But where do you pinpoint the Bulls' issues? Because they've been horrible in the Currie Cup. Yeah, different teams, but even so, they played basically a URC team against the Western Province and got beaten. And then went over. Now it is against Ulster, who are a decent side. Again, with missing a couple of players, but still a decent Ulster side. But just not clicking for them.
Yeah. I think I mentioned it as well last week. I just don't think they have the cohesion. When I follow Bulls, I see a different team in both competitions every week. I don't see the cohesion again. Like I said, like I can't see what they're trying to do. They're not picking the same players all the time. And no, I mean, Mapu and Hendrik, Cornel Hendricks and Gerson, Bismarck, yeah, they're great players in their time, but are they really adding the value? I haven't seen it. And I just think that they should. Bulls always was a factory of talent coming through. Their young sides are always good. I just think the structures aren't there. And I don't think Jake, like you say, if it starts from the top down, I don't think Jake White's a culture-laden leader, so he's just concentrated on his guys at the top, and it's probably not filtering down to those lower guys, so they're not sure in where they stand. They probably don't even know if they're going to be picked on a Thursday. Who knows? I don't know. I'm just making the stuff up, but it just looks like that's what it's about, because I've been burnt by first 2 years ago, Bulls are doing well, but since the Rainbow Cup when they lost in Benetton, and kind of like after that Benetton and Currie Cup, they've burnt me a lot because they're just not playing anywhere near the expectations. And there seems to be a cycle with the Bulls. I don't know if you want to talk about Ulster, but it will lead into the Toulouse game. But again, pretty good Bulls squad, man for man. You would still think Bulls 3 points favorite there in that match, and they couldn't get it done. I know there were some awkward decisions again and whatnot, but again, looks like our provincial teams hate to travel. We hate to travel to New Zealand. We hate to travel to England. We just don't. We don't like it, do we? Just one of these things we have to I don't know how we get rid of it, but it seems to be a blocker for South African teams.
Well, I think hopefully the fact that now we're going to travel so much more. When you think back in the Super Rugby, we used to do that block and then we come back. We didn't travel an awful lot. Whereas now we're playing 50% of the games, or just under 50% of our games. Away.
I actually think there's just too much rugby, to be honest, Steve. All around, there's just too much rugby. It's too much travel, too much. Like it's just. I know they want to milk. The professional sports want to milk everything for what it's worth these days, but. You look at the quality, look at the games, players are getting injured. It's how meaningful are these games? The reference standards are dropping. Let's be fair, honest. It's ruining the rules, and the reference ruining a lot of games. Rugby needs a big shake-up.
Yeah, and World Rugby's solution is that whole World Rugby League, but we won't go into World Rugby because they're just a whole completely different.
That's a whole. That's a whole.
Yeah, no, 100%. No, I do think there are a lot of issues, and I think a lot of formats need to be relooked at, and interesting to see that, as I said, the Champions Cup, Challenge Cup's going to have a bit of a different format next season as well. And I think from a South African perspective, I think also, we now, if we're going to start getting the money from all these European competitions, hopefully, again, it always needs to come down to building our player base, I suppose, at the end of the day, so that we've got. I said we've got squad depth. I mean, Sharks got squad depth. They've got as much squad depth as any URC side. Maybe not Leinster, for example. But after that, there's very few sides who will look at a 35, 40-man squad and think that's a better overall squad.
But I also don't want to take anything away from Leinster and Scarlets because they did play very well. We South African, I'm South African, but I do worry about South African mentality sometimes. I think we sometimes feel we are much better than, or we don't respect opposition nearly as much as we really should. And I think that's something that we've also always had. I think these teams think they're going to be be one, better and over the opposition. So I think that's something that a level of professionalism that we need to also maybe look at again. Not a player, not in the vibe, but there's clearly a South African swing. But then you say that these guys come to us and they struggle. I mean, Exeter came with a decent side against the Bulls and got pretty hammered. So
yeah, it's interesting. And it's interesting. I think the whole psyche is very interesting, as you say. I mean, you look at those results and you sit there thinking about Ulster beating Bulls away is probably about right. Pound for pound, probably different players, but different conditions at home, and you're thinking that's not a dreadful result. As a Bulls fan, considering where the Bulls are, especially. But I look at that Scarlets result for the Sharks, and I think even with Scarlets playing one stuff, I think as you said, the Sharks should have won. The Stormers versus Leinster, Stormers probably should have won. So yeah, it's interesting.
Exactly.
But
I say the Sharks. I said if they just did the basics, if they just went there, scrummed well, lined out well, rucks kicked well, they would have won that game by 15 points. But I don't know what the hell. They were kicking, making mistakes left, right, and center. They couldn't execute a thing. It was just weird.
Yeah, and then just very quickly, I want to just touch the Currie Cup a little bit because obviously people actually, it's actually been quite weird because we had that episode where we talked about how the Currie Cup was so pointless and nobody cared about the Currie Cup, and yet it's actually been quite interesting to see how many people all of a sudden do seem to be kind of getting into the Currie Cup a little bit because we've seen some cool results. But last weekend we saw the Lions beating the Griffins, had to come from behind. It would have only been the Lions that managed to pin their first team to lose Griffins. Cheetahs continued their good form, beating the Bulls 32 points to 7. Pumas against the Greek was 28 points to 13, and Sharks beating the Province. So that was a nice result for Sharks. I want to talk about Pumas a little bit. I don't know how much you managed to watch of last week, but they're just playing some of the most careless, entertaining.
They're beautiful to watch.
Actually, you just sit there going, like, obviously they do have to practice a lot of what they do, but some of the things they do, you sit there thinking there's no ways that like they're sitting there practicing. I mean, I'd love to watch a training session there because, I mean, is Jimmy Stonehouse just saying to these guys, guys, he has a ball, throw it around, kick it, throw it back. I mean, they're just putting out some ridiculous moves and stuff at the moment.
Yeah, it's just like it's like almost like all things have come together perfectly for the Pumas.
Yeah.
The squad, the coaching, the tournament conditions. It's like it looks like it's Pumas tournament. It's like this is our world. They just look far better than any other team actually.
It's like an exhibition for them. It's literally it's a competition to show us how cool they are.
I couldn't believe I didn't know where this has come from. There's an offloading game there that's unreal, and the guys. Like you say, they're not practicing it. I think they are. I think they've been drilled into, if you can make that pass, throw that pass out, and it just looks like again we're totally opposite of the Sharks. You saw a well-coached team, right?
But I think a team also that's been given the freedom. I think a coach that says, "I back you to make the." I mean, I think that was that cross kick from Devin Williams, and then some of the offload stuff. I think it's a team which as well. I think where Jimmy Stiles says, "Listen. You know what you need to do. We practice this, but also you've got the freedom when you see that space, when you see it on, just have a go. I mean, Diego Polis is somebody who was at SA schools kind of fallen a wayside, and I look at him sitting there going, how is no URC team lining up for him as an outside centre, which is a position which I think the South Africans are a bit short across the country. He's just been sublime for them.
Yeah. He's basically, it looks like he knows every strength of that team. And he's just honed on that and said, that's how we're going to do it. And it's just like, they just look a level above. You can see it, they just do.
I'm not sure I'll go as far as when he says, that they need to be taken more seriously and, they need more opportunities, they prove themselves. And therefore, I think he's basically sort of anchoring on the fact that they need to be given a chance to the higher levels. I think do this for a couple of years and we'll start taking it seriously. But it is cool to see because it's a fun product.
It is. It is cool to see it's fun, but I have said it's fun in this tournament. But if it was URC, I don't think it's going to be that fun. So
you can't go over to Ireland and do that.
Correct. So I think that's what I'm saying. The teams they play in, the conditions they play in, it's the storm that suits this Pumas team. And I think if they would come up against higher level opponents, they'll shut that down. They'll make mistakes that won't last for sure.
Yeah,
cool. Good on them to read in it and do
100%.
Go, Yeah, you know.
And we'll just keep enjoying the ridiculous
I enjoy
and the
watching. I
sublime.
actually enjoy. I never thought I would say it. I actually enjoy watching them. When I sit and watch them, I actually like, geez, I can just watch them, you know.
Yeah,
And
it's a little bit almost
that's
like
I
Varsity
didn't
Cup
know.
vibes, where it's just some teams that are
Yeah,
just not afraid to just have a bit of a go, have a bit of fun, almost not caring too much if it doesn't come off, but if it does, it's gonna be really good. So
yeah,
long may that continue. Um,
yeah, yeah.
But Chris, seeing as I've got you by yourself here, I think something we've been wanting to do a little bit of a while is we're doing a lot of sort of some of the sport debate and provides debates. But I think some people have been sort of been speaking to me and saying that if they're very new to sort of sports betting and stuff like that, because we're not
Mm-hmm.
looking at games this weekend, we look at some of the bets, sort of where to start and stuff. So I thought the best thing we could do maybe now for a little bit is kind of go through, I wouldn't say almost like a betting 101 type thing in terms of I go and create my Betcozo account, which, by the way, people, you can do with the link in the description. Go and get yourself a Betcozo account. We're going to be giving away free bets this weekend so that you can then try out the stuff we're going to show you. Because I think the biggest thing is that what people don't realize is that there's so many different ways to bet. Some people are big handicap
Yeah,
bettors. Some people are,
yeah.
will build up lots of different tables and stuff like that. And everybody's got very different
Correct.
approaches
Okay.
and stuff like that. So
Okay.
let's pull up
Yeah.
I think the book, which is probably the easiest way to do it. I don't know if you want to sort of maybe give a bit of a rundown on what your approach is or what any sort of what a general sort
Well,
of betting
okay.
approaches and stuff.
I'm, I, okay. I'm going to be honest. We did go. Okay, it's cleared up a bit. It's very difficult for me to see, but I can talk. I'm going to talk through it anyway. What I can see. So yeah, sure. So what's the basics? So there's a match. There's a bookmaker and there's a punter yourself, and your the punter's challenge is to basically almost win or beat or outsmart the bookie, because the bookie is going to come up with their assumption of a match. They're going to do all they describe. Well, they're getting very clever now because they've got data systems and
Mm,
algorithms and AI that backing up data. So they're getting very, very good to call in a game. So what they do is it's called handicapping a match. Well, firstly, they'll give odds on the outcome. So that's your money line. It's called the money line. So
yeah.
this team is they come up with the percentage. I'm not going to go
So
into
so
all the
this
maths, as
so
you
this
can
will be
see.
basically be this
Because
basically.
that's the money. So those are your
Yeah.
money line odds. Yes, those are the percent. That's the probability that the bookmakers come up and said the probability. I'm not that all that good with maths, but there's the system. But I think that's about what a 70-80% chance. They say 80% chance that Leicester are going to win this game, and this is the the odds that come out, and then supposedly law of probability, the odds go to Edinburgh. So that's it. You always think it almost kind of like balance itself out in the odds that they're
Yeah.
given. So on any game, they essentially break even. But what these gangsters do, call them gangsters, whatever, these bookies do, they deflate odds or in to basically that's the edge that they have, because
Mm,
you're actually not getting the real desired probability. They're
yeah.
taking a premium there by changing the odds. So that's why they always say the bookies win or the bookies always in favor. So that's the thing about bookies is for you to look at the bookies and go, no, the bookies have got it wrong. For one,
Mm,
I think that it's actually Edinburgh. I feel Edinburgh are more of a 50% favorite. I'm saying straight away that bookie is wrong, and the value is to bet Edinburgh 3 for 15, because it should, in your mind, it should be 2.20. So
yeah.
you are now basically challenging the bookie. You're saying the bookie's got it wrong, and I'm going to take that line, right? That's the line odds. And then we hear a lot about line odds, or that's the money line odd. Then you hear a lot
Yeah.
about handicapping and line odds. So there's obviously a whole lot of markets now. There's odds bets that you can take in a match, but you get your main line odds, which will be the handicap on points. So we're in this game now.
Yeah.
So handicap, you see. So now we've gone past the money line. So now we want to make it a 50-50, right? We
Yeah.
want to make a bet that's basically a 50-50 bet. And now the bookmakers are saying, well, we believe that Leicester are going to win by 7 points. Again, all added into the actual probability out of the line win. It all obviously matches up in the models. And they're saying, right, we're putting it down. We're saying that they're going to win by 7. And then it's up to you now to basically say, are Leicester going to win by more than that? So if Leicester win by 10, then that bet essentially will win. because it's covered the -7. They've won by more than the 7. Or you say they're going to win by less, and you take the plus handicap, and you'll lay and taking the points. So you'll say, if I say I want to lay the 7, it means you fine bookies have the 7 because I believe they're going to win by more. Or you say, I'm going to take the points. Thank you very much. I'll take that Leicester will not win by more than 7. And whatever the final score will be, you add that plus points on the score. So say it's 22-20 to Leicester, and you took +7, you win your bet because essentially you've taken the bet that is 27-22. If that makes sense. So you win on that plus.
Yeah, so it's within that 7 point.
Correct. So that's the handy. So that's what we talk about, the handicap. Now you take that on points. You see underneath you got the lines for. Then you see it's for points, and now the bookies are saying, is that 45 points? So the bookies are saying, we think the game's going to be a 45. And again, then you take overs or unders. So you say, oh, well, I actually think it's going to be 52. Depending on what better you like. 45 is too low, and in your mind, that's very good value. That's a bet you want to take because you're essentially getting 7 points for free because you feel the line should be 52, right? So you feel you're getting 7 points from the bookies, right? Vice versa, if you think it's going to be 44, other way around, right? Then you take the unders, you play on the unders, and so on. And you can have that for tries as well. But then there's obviously other markets that have first halves and second halves and full. So those are your 3 main bets. Let's stay there because then you get alternative caps and points. So now you can start moving away from the line cap, but you'll get reduced or increased odds in either direction. And that's up to you because, again, here's an example. If you think it's going to be 52 and the line's 45, you can get 50 points you might see for 2.70 higher odds. So for you, that is a value bet. That's a bet that you feel you can make money on that market, right? So you take it. And now this is all dependent on every punter has their different styles of field. So I play everything really, but I've got a lot of success now on the outs. That's why, as you has been seen on the show, I've given you outs multiples because you can add different. At the moment in South Africa for bets like BetCozy, you can't do the same. You can't put it in the same match. You have to take different matches to put alts into a bet, and that becomes the multiple. So like there are bet builders, lots of very popular for football, but one bookmaker in the UK are doing it for rugby, which is quite cool. And then you get basically prop bet and player props. So you can bet on try scorers. Some people love to bet on. You can bet on a first try scorer, anytime try scorer, or last try scorer. So it's quite a popular bet because you can obviously get quite big odds on tight 5 forwards.
Yeah.
But back in the day, there was a secret. You could basically get a hooker to score at 6-7 to 1. But as you noticed in rugby now, there's a Merlin roll. There's 2 or 3 Merlin roll, more than 5 meter rolling more tries in every match. So the bookies have caught on. I can't see the names. You'll probably see
Julian Montoya is at the top there.
Yeah, you see, and he's a hooker. But then a prop and the lock are at the bottom over 20. So obviously the stats don't lie. The bookies know that hookers are scoring tries, so you don't really get a lot of value on the try scorers now. I don't bet on them seriously. It's more novel. It's something called novelty bets. Is like really outsider bets. It's called novelty bets. It's not something you're playing towards if you're a serious punter looking at your bankroll. But so like sometimes if it's going to be like a Highlanders or Blues, Hurricanes, good weather, I think there's going to be 70 points and plenty of tries. You can find, if you can find a wing at 2.5, 3 to 1, sometimes that happens. It's worth a bet. It's worth putting a quarter of a unit on. We'll talk the units in a minute, but yeah, it's worth it. So that's basic. So depending on bookmakers, every bookmaker some have loads of different alts, some don't have as many, obviously depending on the bookie's appetite. And basically the odds are what you bet times your money is what you get in return. I think people would understand that's what the odds are. Basically, you can work in decimals and fractions. I like decimals, like what you've shown. I've always done that, but a lot of South African punters work in the decimals. yeah, I think that's brilliant. And then let's talk units. So the key to a decent betting strategy is, for one, don't bet more than you should. That's not a good strategy.
Yeah.
And two,
bet responsibly. Yeah.
And they say you should have about 20 times. Say you have a unit is your standard unit bet, and that can be from one. If you want to bet R1 as a unit, or 1,000, whatever your budget is, you pick a unit amount, and that's what you stick by. And then you normally the going range is between 1 unit and 7 units for like how confident you are that bet's going to land, and how much money you want to risk on that bet. So if it's like 1 or 2 units, you're thinking low confidence, or you just don't want to risk a lot of your money, of course. And then you can go up to 5, 7. And that's basically like what you would call a max bet, like we all in or really believe it's going to come home. And what you want to do is you have like almost 200 times. If you start your bankroll, give what they say, you want to have like 100, but maybe 200 times your units, or not even that much, but you have a bankroll, so you try manage it. If you can get a strategy of choosing the right selection at the right time, you should slowly be able to basically build your bankroll and be disciplined. And that's the key, guys. Like I've been doing this for 20 years, and I know a lot of punters. Discipline is the key. The key to not bet too much when you don't need to not chase bets when you've lost, and to not bet all the time. And that's actually the key to doing well. But also your love for sports. For me, it was a love for sport, and I felt I know a lot about sport. That when I saw a market, and I was like, no ways, that's going to happen, and I can make money from it. It's a hobby, and sometimes it makes I enjoy it, but sometimes it makes games stressful.
Yeah.
But it should be a hobby. But there are pro bettors out there, and they got like 5 million screens and algorithms and data and hedging, because there's hedging and arbitrage. So I don't know anyone on the call. This might be a call sussing this out, but I think for most viewers who are just starting out for betting, we don't need to go down that route. Just back yourself as what you believe the outcome of the game is going to be. And if you truly believe that that's the outcome, and you've got a little bit of money, have a little play for fun, and you should be good.
Right. Cool. Well, there we go. I think the main thing, as I said, is to be responsible still. I like the fact that you said, you don't always bet. I think that's quite important. Is the fact that some people, I think, will go and load their wallet with $50, and then they think every day or every weekend they've then got to be, spending it all and stuff like that. So I think it's important, as I said, to understand when to bet and when not to bet, and if there aren't good markets, if there aren't good odds, to then say, no, actually, I don't like this. I'm going to sit this one out, and I'll come back when I see something I do like. So I like that part. So should we talk about this week's bit there? What you got for us this week, which is, I think, over. Where's it going? Are we
bringing up the slide?
Yeah, I'm just going to bring it up here. There it is. Right, now this looks like gibberish to a lot of people. So to talk us through this.
Yeah. So let's hope what I've just discussed will make sense now, right? So I know we've been talking about it in the last couple of weeks. So since we started this 3 weeks ago now?
Yeah.
Well, last week I gave 1 punt. I gave that 1 treble. We can recap that. At the moment, I've just been given 1 straight unit bet just to start off us on this journey. We'll start talking about different unit sizes as we go. But I put the treble, so I started taking the alternative points line cap. Yeah. So Waratahs Chiefs, we took over 46. The line cap was 52. So we took some more. We kept buy in the points, so less points for us to win, but lower odds, right? Unfortunately, a lot of punters lost that game. It was the only one we lost. A lot of punters were on the overs. It was supposed to be bad weather, became good weather, but it was a shoddy, horrible game. Then we took the Greekers on the points, which just scraped home after looking good for 60 minutes. But then the Pumas class came through, but it did sneak home. I think the Greekers won by 15, I think in the end, 16-15 in the end. And the Highlanders won quite comfortably against the Drua. So we lost. Ultimately, we lost. So I'm saying we won those legs. It doesn't matter. A loss is a loss. But just to show that if you are following my advice, that I'm not giving you total rubbish. We only missed out by a little bit there. So that was last week. And then the season record, we've gone 2 for 2 in the win rates. but because our odds are higher than the line, because I'm going higher than the 1.9s, which is generally a line cap, we return in more when we win in, which is nice. So even though we're 2 for 2, we are up 1.58 units. So saying if your units are if your unit's 100, so if you follow these 4 bets, you bet 100 on each of these bets, you'll be 148 Rand up on your balance, if that's what you're doing. So that's not a bad start. If Chiefs came in, we'll be nicely up. If that game came up, but let's just keep going and building this up and keep it in the black. And then I've given you this, as we spoke about earlier, the confidence value. So when I start talking, I might rev it up. I don't know if I'm going to go 4 or 5 units for a while or yet, but I think we can go a little bit higher on some of the units to bring home some more bacon when I'm really, really confident. So as you can see, low confidence is 1 to 2 units, medium 3, high 4 to 5 would be when I'm giving out bets here. And I have looked at a bet for this weekend.
Right, so guys, this is it,
we need to speak, but because it's Thursday night and not all the information is available, not all the odds are available, which I personally like to bet on. So we spoke about, we'll give the users opportunity, because like last weekend, even though this bet won, I won 3 other trebles, quite nice, convinced easily. So I would like to share that with you guys and add it to this record. But I'm very quite confident on this one for this weekend. It's another multi. It's a 3-legger multiple. So first I've got Leicester at home to Edinburgh. I just think Leicester are just too good. They are just solid at home. They are playing a lot better than they've played recently. Pollard played amazingly well last week. And Edinburgh,
Edinburgh fans are very excited about this one, I think.
Edinburgh have got players back, but I'm just very confident that Leicester at home will do the job tomorrow. They got the pedigree back at Walford Road, humming crowd. I just think they do the job. Confident on that. Got Rebels plus against the Drua. This is probably going to be another touch rugby game, back and forth. I think Rebels have taken a decent side. I'm actually surprised for the Drua are favourites. Rebels could be favourites here. So for me, 11-point grab to start. Call it 11 and a half head start points is 1.30 is a solid bet, because I feel that the Rebels could win this game. So for me, this is strong, this leg. And Brumbies at home as well. I can't see, they do the business. They're so good at Canberra. They're hard to beat at Canberra. Waratahs are not solid enough to go to Canberra and win. That's my opinion. So I think Brumbies are comfortable there. And there are other teams this weekend on much lower odds, but we're trying to also make money. There's no point putting three odds on favorites in here and only getting $20 for $100. We're trying to find the smartest way that we get some value for our unit stake, whatever unit you're taking, and that multiple comes to 2.19. But I have confidence here. Let's go 1.5 units. That'll be a nice return on this treble should it land, which I would be quite surprised if any of those upsets happen. But they do happen, because for all money, the Waratahs and Chiefs were going over 50 points last week. But you never know. That's betting, right? It never wins all the time. But I like this bet. But I would like to also start sharing bets on Saturdays, because Saturdays, there's just more information. I've spent a lot more time looking at the games and doing my research because it's available. So we'll talk how we can get that information out to you guys as well.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, no, so I think we'll probably start posting in our community. We can do it on a Saturday morning or Friday evening. We can put out another weekend bet. We can add it to the record as well. Cool. Thanks, Chris. I think that's covered it all very nicely. So yeah, if you guys are looking to get into it, stuff like that, it's quite cool. You want to start doing it, especially as a previous sports team. I think we'll start, as I said, we'll keep track and sort of see how we go over the season, which would be quite cool.
Yeah. So that's why I started on. Sorry to say, that's why I started on 1 units for the guys, because if there are new guys, I don't want you guys throwing, follow me too blind. Let's ease into it. Let's ease and get a feel for it, see how the record's going, and then we can work at how we can, because there are other bets I will certainly share with you guys. There are 1 to 12 bets which are really nice, which aren't always available at time of show.
All right, cool. Perfect. Okay, well then lastly, Chris, let's talk about this week, shall we? Because there's some cracking games, and lots of teams which need to start playing some good rugby here. And maybe we'll also look at the odds as a nice way to look at exactly what we're looking at. We'll focus obviously on the South African side. So if you look at Sharks versus Munster, I'll actually bring it up on screen here. Sharks are the favourites, as are the Stormers against Harlequins.
Yeah.
Both playing at home. Stormers versus the Harlequins, and then Sharks versus Munster. Do you agree with them? So are we seeing two home wins for the two South African sides in the Champions Cup?
I'm going to say yes, but I honestly am saying at this moment.
Oh, and we lost Chris for a bit
I'm not
there.
as confident, maybe. Or actually, the book.
Right, well, we've lost Chris for a bit there, so we're going to try and bring him back. While we do wait for him, this is currently how it looks at the moment. So in terms of the fixtures for this weekend, Sharks versus Munster it's happening on Saturday at 1:30. Again, the time could be quite interesting as well. Could be quite a very hot day down in Durban. Stormers versus Harlequins kicking off at 4 o'clock at DHL Stadium. Should be a little bit cooler. The weather in South Africa is a bit cooler at the moment as we sort of head towards autumn. Other games around there: Leicester versus Edinburgh. That's part of our bet. Trevor, that we just talked about. That's tomorrow night. We've got Leinster versus Ulster on Saturday, 6:30. Should be quite a good game there. La Rochelle versus Gloucester at 6:30 as well. Then on Sunday, we've got Exeter Chiefs versus Montpellier, Saracens versus the Ospreys, Bulls versus Toulouse. Bulls not being given a chance in hell, really, to win that game. So he is. It's interesting at the Bulls side, which is really struggling at the moment. So the best way to sort of to make a point and stuff like that, if you are struggling, is to go out and get yourself a pretty big victory. Elsewhere, we look at the Champions Cup. Obviously, there's two South Africa teams in there, the Lions and the Cheetahs. If we look at them over here. How do I go to my rest of my? I don't think all the odds are up just yet for this one. So it's Cheetahs versus Toulon. That is on Saturday, as well as Lions versus Racing, which is taking place on Saturday as well. Two interesting games. I think we're looking at the Cheetahs, and no France Day, by the way, has not travelled. It's difficult always to kind of predict what Cheetahs team will rock up, and how the Cheetahs will play. Because they're quite a mercurial team. They're quite a team with a little bit of inconsistencies, and sometimes they can play great rugby. Sometimes they can't. It's difficult to gauge where they're at. They haven't played a lot of rugby at this level. They're not playing URC, on a weekly basis, which doesn't help in terms of sort of finding out exactly what's going on where. It's hopefully it's a case of the teams sort of coming good here. So I'm about to bring Chris back in here, so if he can just give us a few seconds, then we'll bring him back and see if he agrees with what I reckon. And we're gonna go back to our where do I want to go? That's where I want to go, and I'm just gonna bring back our screen, which is over here. Let's go back to our Champions Cup, shall we? And Chris is back. Welcome back, Chris. Hang on, I've got to unmute him so that you guys can also hear him. Right, now everybody can hear you again.
And yeah, sorry guys, apologize for that.
Right, Chris. So you're saying, so you reckon? I believe you were saying you reckon Sharks and Stormers both bounce back.
I'm bounce back for Sharks. I think home wins. Yeah. I don't think it's going to be all that easy, to be honest. I think it's going to be tough. I think they're both going to be given games, but they pull through. But no betting suggestions there because I'm not that confident yet. I'm going to wait till closer in the games.
Yeah, fair enough. I think two big games, two big wins for them if they do in terms of the type of teams that they're beating. If they can go and beat the Harlequins and the Munster, I think it'll be big confidence boosters for them as well. And then the Bulls being written off without a second thought against Toulouse, which I think is probably also pretty fair. I think the Bulls themselves are written them off. I think Bismarck was talking about the fact that if you look at player squads and budget and stuff like that they'll never be able to compete with the likes of a Toulouse. But is there any chance for the Bulls?
No.
No.
But this is what I was leading in from previous conversations. this is where Jake White makes his money, because he's not a long term, he's not culture, but you put him in a one-on-one in a situation like this is where Jake White thrives. He's proven it. He did that last year against Leicester. So if there is a chance the Bulls can pull it upset here, because this is what they've been there. He's murmuring how he's got a plan for DuPont. So I am expecting a big Bulls performance. I think the cap as well, is very high. I just haven't punted it because it is Bulls, it is to lose. It's not a sure thing that the Bulls will cover. So that's why I'm not punting them on bets yet. But it's an intriguing game. It's one probably to keep the money in your pocket and watch, because you could see a very Leinster-like Bulls performance here. Don't be surprised. But I think Toulouse just have the quality and the class to take it home.
Right, and in the Challenge Cup, we've got the Cheetahs taking on Toulon, and then we've got the Lions versus Racing. Yeah, big.
To be honest, but I'll be honest. I find the European stuff hard. I never really watched the Pro D2 poll before it became URC. And European, I love to watch it. I watch a lot of games. I love the passion, but I find the matchups when I do the punting thing, like full strength South African teams, full strength Super Rugby, international, when I know the players, I know the matchups, is where I'm confident to punt results. But when I see Stormers, Harlequins, we go, yeah, sure, Stormers are going to win. But how do we not know that Harlequins have a game plan and something that counteracts, right? So same as Bulls Leinster, like I just find it very difficult to read. That's why it's almost like just kind of follow the home form, because that seems to bode well, but not in terms of the bet and stuff. But yeah, I actually, to be honest, mate, I don't have a strong opinion on these matchups, because literally it feels like it could be anything.
Yeah. Well, fair enough. I mean, we're looking at, so we did a poll earlier in the chat to sort of wrap up, and we sort of said, how many SA wins will we get in the Champions Cup? Talking about just the Champions Cup, so there's the 3 matches. And the 51% people saying 2 wins, 11% saying 3, 29% saying 1, and 7% saying none. And I think, probably, as I said, probably backing the home sides there in the Stormers and the Sharks to get a win. But you never know what Bulls. I mean, maybe the Bulls have been training for this for the last 3 weeks, and this is all just culminating into something, because that's the kind of team, as you said, and that's the kind of person Jake White could be. But that's pretty much it, people. That's a very cool weekend of rugby. As I said, I think for a lot of South African fans, I think they've watched Champions Cup rugby in the past, but very casually, very much, it's a cool game because Saracens playing Toulouse or whatever. So whereas now I think we're genuinely invested, and hopefully it'll be a really cool weekend of rugby for the South African fans, as they can really sort of get into the Champions Cup and the Challenge Cup, and we can kind of try and establish ourselves a little bit. I think also as a South African, it's SA rugby. It's important for these sides to go out to do well and to compete with the European giants. And how cool it is to be able to play against Pollard and Archie Snyman's come out. I mean, I know he would come out with URC anyway, but to play like Jasper Wiese, for example, if you're playing, if we do play against Leicester, then you get to watch these sort of things. So it's a very nice sort of addition to it. But we're going to wrap up there. Chris, thank you very much for our deep dive into betting.
I hope that made sense. I hope I can sometimes waffle. I hope everyone understood that. But hopefully, as we go on this journey, it will become clearer and clearer. Well, and obviously, I'm like, give the comments. Like I didn't follow. If people put questions next week in the comments, I can answer as well. Don't be afraid to ask, I guess, and I can answer questions if we need.
Yeah, 100%. So if put any comments and any questions in the comments below, and we'll address them next week and stuff. We'll also upload the betting statement as a separate video, so you can go back and you can watch it. If you're new to it and creating your Betco's account, stuff like that. Big shout out to Betco's who are powering the stream and helping us bring you guys all the rugby action this weekend. So big shout out and a big thank you to their support. Chris, enjoy the weekend of rugby. I'm sure.
Let's go Stormers.
And the Lions are going to pull off an incredible upset against some European giants. So backing my boys to do the job at the park. But hopefully we just see some good rugby and some cool results. And Chris, I'm sure we'll see you.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll see you next week.
Love that you love the European game. Yeah, I would love to. Love being here. Enjoy it. Let's do it. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Everybody else, smash the like on the video. Yeah, thank you very much. Subscribe to the channel as well, people. We'll have a schedule. I'll be live tomorrow morning. We've got the Sevens as well, which is back. So I think it's Blitzbox versus Ireland at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. I'll be live for that. We're playing against Kenya at a reasonable hour on Saturday morning, some very early morning games. Also, if you're a big Formula One fan, we will be doing a Formula One gaming stream that will be starting at about 10:30 over on Forever Sports Extra. So you guys can go check that out. We'll also be live over the weekend for all the Formula One action. So make sure you go and join Mark and Reese as they bring you that. Please keep well, everybody, and we'll see you guys all next time.